Watch right now on the Front News project. Russia is on fire, with strikes on Bryansk and other military facilities. And this is just the beginning. From back, 3 couples have died and 2 children are in a coma. Tankers. The Ukrainian armed forces are eliminating the invaders in the Orakov direction. Fiery, hot and blazing. Watch the footage from the front lines right now. The bloody war continues. The war that Vladimir Putin and his pack have unleashed on Ukrainian soil. The heroic resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces and the entire Ukrainian people continues in their fight for freedom. Greetings. This is Front News. This is Vladimir Timoshenko with you. In the next 30 minutes, you'll get the truth about the war, which our journalists are uncovering from the hottest battle zones. So, are you ready? Then let's get started. And we start right away with exclusive footage. This week there has been a record number of bangs in the territory of the Russian Federation. We're of course talking about military facilities. 9 regions of the aggressor country have been attacked. In particular, the military infrastructure of terrorist Russia in the Smolensk and Tver regions has come under attack. The oil depot of the main intelligence directorate in the Nizhny Novgorod region has also been hit. And this is just the beginning. Advertisement. In the near future, for objective reasons, there will be even more attacks on military facilities in Russia. All the details are in our report.
Russia is on fire. The Ministry of Defense of the aggressor country announced a massive drone attack on 9 regions. On the night of January 29th, according to the Ministry of Murders of the Russian Federation, 104 drones were intercepted and destroyed. Due to the attack at Kazan airport, the carpet plan was implemented. In addition, temporary restrictions were imposed on the operation of Pulkovo airport in St. Petersburg.
They are decreasing, firstly, the number of Ukrainian drones, because to give a real picture, attacks from the Ukrainian side is to recognize the capabilities of the Ukrainian Pro-Defense Forum, and accordingly, the Ukrainian intelligence community at the moment of striking the territory of the Russian Federation. So initially, they downplay the number of aerodynamic targets in order to create an illusion of calm among the Russian population.
The infrastructure in the Smolensk and Tver regions has come under attack. The governor of Smolensk stated that allegedly 1 drone was shot down during an attempted attack on a nuclear power facility, but did not provide any details.
The Russian side makes similar statements regarding the alleged strikes by a Ukrainian UAV on the captured Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So the goal of such information campaigns is to portray Ukraine as a terrorist state, a country that poses a nuclear threat not only to Russia but also to European countries. It should be noted that the Ukrainian side constantly emphasizes that about legitimate military targets. Legitimate targets. On the territory of the Russian Federation, there are exclusively military facilities and enterprises of the Russian defense industry.
A fire also broke out at enterprises in the Nizhny Novgorod region. Drones from the main intelligence directorate hit a fuel depot of the company Lukoil. The Lukoil fuel depot is a supplier of raw materials for explosives and is essentially a common resource for the Kremlin dictator Vladimir Putin. We're talking about the company Sebergtol from the assets of the Russian leader.
It is extremely important for the logistics not only of the ground forces, of the armed forces, of the Russian Federation, but primarily for the aerospace forces of the Russian Federation and the consequences of the strike on the oil refinery. In the near future, the airfields, the tactical airfields of the Russian aerospace forces will feel the impact directly. On the territory of the Russian Federation. So this is a shortage of aviation kerosene.
It was also restless in the Bryansk region. According to the governor, 33 drones were destroyed over the region.
But they wouldn't be united. In the forest, they might go towards Bryansk. At least, that's the information being spread by Russian propaganda. Who knows? Maybe it's not in vain.
A statement. from the Russian side regarding the possibility of a repeat of the Kursk scenario in the Bryansk region. They began to be actively lobbied in the Russian press after the statement from the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, Syrskyi, that the Ukrainian side is considering the possibility of repeating the Kursk scenario in other subjects of the Russian Federation. It's not ruled out that this, accordingly, Bryansk and Belgorod regions.
The situation in the Kursk region is also tense. The North Korean military has failed due to a lack of preparation to counter drones and artillery. Also, according to the partisan movement Atesh, Russian prisoners of war are trying to pass off self-inflicted injuries as combat wounds, to be as far away from the front line as possible. And France is also planning to transfer Ukrainian fighter jets, the Mirage 2005, by the end of the first quarter of 2025.
Mirage 2005, which is being provided by the French side, they received a new radar system that has the capability to detect targets at a distance of up to 130 kilometers. It has the capability to simultaneously track 8 targets and directly engage 4 targets.
Meanwhile, Russia continues to violate the rules. According to the publication Important Stories, the tankers Volgoneft are indeed delivering fuel to the ships of the Shadow Fleet in the port of Kavkaz.
Well, now it's time to analyze the operational situation on the long-suffering Pokrovsk front. The enemy's bloody bacchanalia continues. In the Pokrovsk direction, over the course of these 24 hours, the aggressor has attacked our positions 51 times in the areas of populated localities Malinovka, Elizavetovka, Vodyanoe 2, Novotoretskoe, Luch, Pokrovsk, Lisovka, Novoukrajinka, Udachnoe, Jasenovo, Shevchenko, and Dachnoe. 7 combat clashes are still ongoing. Beletskaya was subjected to an airstrike with guided aerial bombs. Also, the Russian army has advanced in 7 populated areas of the Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Luhansk regions. This is reported by the resource Deep State. Yeah, and you know, the situation at the front right now is hellish. In total, 125 combat clashes were recorded over the past 24 hours. The Russian troops are attacking most intensively near Pokrovsk, as well as in the Toretsk, Lyman, and Kupiansk directions. We'll definitely talk about this today. And the Serebryansk forestry is once again shaking from explosions. The invaders are trying to attack to break through the defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine. A report from the very hell of war right now from TSN correspondents.
Such arrivals are heard throughout the forest every day from morning till evening. Everything has been mowed down now, you can take a look.
The check shows fresh craters near his positions. You can't hear any birds here, just the whistling of passing shells. This is what the Serebryansk forest looks like. Thousands of hectares have simply been burned, destroyed by enemy artillery and FPV drones. After unsuccessful offensives in this sector, the enemy has shifted its efforts northward to the area around Ternov. The Serebryansk forest is made up of burned trees, fallen trunks, and uprooted pines. In some places there are still surviving trees, but that's until the next massive artillery strike.
First of all, mortars play a very big role. FPV drones, the drops are just the same. They have enough of everything, basically. Well, I mean, you can see from our side over there. So it is blocked, but the front is now tense. But the front has become tense now. The front has become tense now.
In the Lyman direction, it's hottest near Ternov. There, the enemy managed to cross the river and establish themselves on the right bank. The enemy is expanding their foothold and advancing towards the yams of Polevka.
From time to time, they gather a certain number of people and make attempts to carry out assaults. So they are assaulting somewhere else. Then, bam, we switched abruptly. It's starting to work on us, so it could start at any moment.
Sasha was an elementary school teacher in civilian life. Now the commander of the mortar crew. He says he misses his peaceful profession.
Well, it's okay, the kids call in right, they don't forget.
Most often our guys work against the infantry. The assaults by the occupiers are now constant against the neighboring units. So we need to help stop the occupiers.
Well, there were hits on the command post. There were hits on the command post, on people, on equipment, and they destroyed a lot of bunkers.
The enemy has more ammunition, so the occupiers didn't make us wait long for a response. Heavy shells flew in our direction. The forest was drowned in the echoes of explosions. That's aimed at us. All the guys in this unit have been fighting since the beginning of the full-scale war. All the volunteers have gotten used to the physical strain and have even overcome their fear. But almost everyone is mentally exhausted. Dreams save us from hopelessness. Some will return to their beloved jobs, while others will go back to their families, who have been waiting for almost 3 years.
And also this week, the enemy continued to terrorize and kill peaceful Ukrainians. The Kiev region was subjected to a brutal attack. In particular, 3 people have died. A few more sought help from medical personnel. These are the results of the Kremlin's Shahed attack on the Kiev region. In the city of Brovary, an enemy drone destroyed a private house. The most terrifying thing is that a couple burned alive in it, and the blast wave damaged neighboring houses. And in Holivka, parts of a drone hit an apartment building. About 150 people were evacuated. And there is a deceased here. KTSCN correspondent Elena Laskin visited the site of this genocide. Her chilling material follows.
Instead of a panoramic window, there's a huge hole. She gazes into the distance through it. Lilia. The woman is on the verge of tears. She just recently finished the renovations.
I just did it, poured my soul into it.
Now, together with her brother Yevgeny, they walk around the apartment hoping to find and save at least something that survived.
Vacuum cleaner gone.
That all?
Well, I don't know. We need to take a look.
And suddenly, they stumble upon a piece of metal in the middle of the room. This is probably a part from a Russian Shahed. Do you really know? Or is that just what you think?
Well, there was nothing like that here. It can't be. There's nothing extra here.
The horror in this Holivka apartment building began in the middle of the night when people were already sound asleep.
It was probably around... The explosion was very strong, but we were asleep. We have a small child. We have you and the little one.
A part of the downed enemy drone hit one of the entrances. The floors were bursting into flames and burning. Light torches, recalls Vasily Dmitrievich.
Say... YouTube won't let it go unnoticed.
Terrified residents are fleeing from the apartment. They still can't move on from what they've experienced. Was it a big fire?
Awesome.
Awesome. Look, you see everything is burned out. A hit, you see where it landed. The gas pipe wasn't damaged.
The Lily ran out into the yard in what she was wearing. I ran out in my underwear. People gave me some clothes. Rescuers arrived at the scene right away, putting out the fires and checking if anyone was left behind in the fiery trap. In total, about 50 residents were evacuated from the building. More than a dozen apartments burned down, burned to the ground. 4 people sought medical help. A man was killed.
Construction time. 36 years old, a local resident. I was born here, in the neighborhood. My parents live in the neighboring house. They usually walk with their dog, but today, where are they supposed to walk today?
Lyudmila knew the deceased well. They were neighbors. The woman is a displaced person from Luhansk. And I've been living in this house for 10 years.
10 years? I rent a place in this apartment. I have 2 rooms and Sergei, the one who died, has the other 2. A shell hit his apartment. He's a computer guy, such a good one. We've been living next to each other for about 8 years now.
I feel so sorry for him. Not far from the damaged high-rise building hit by a Russian drone, they set up a point of invincibility so that people could warm up and rest after a sleepless night. The shockwave shattered the windows in nearby houses, and parked cars in the yard were damaged. As soon as the rescuers allowed it, the utility workers and local residents immediately started clearing away the construction debris and boarding up the windows with plywood.
And now let's move to the Severodonetsk and Kramatorsk front. Russian invaders are advancing here as well. On the Severodonetsk front, the enemy has made 9 attempts since the beginning of the day to tighten the pressure on our defenders positioned in the areas of Bilohorivka and Verkhnokamensk. All combat encounters have concluded. The enemy also carried out airstrikes on Dronivka and Severetsk. On the Kramatorsk front, Ukrainian soldiers repelled 10 attempts by the invaders. They advanced in the areas of Orekovo-Vasilivka, Novomarkove, Stupochki, and Chasovy Yar, as well as Pritichino. At the same time, the enemy carried out airstrikes on the areas of Fedorivka, Tikhonivka, and Belokuzminivka, from destroying bunkers to eliminating infantry. This is how our tank crews operate in the Orekovo direction. The enemy is also not resting. The aggressor has brought fresh units to this section of the front, who at the same time have serious combat experience. And the occupiers are trying to approach our positions almost one by one to adjust their fire. They are accumulating more forces to launch assaults. That's why our tank crews are working ahead of the curve, saving the lives of Ukrainian infantry. A report from the Orekovo front by TSN journalist Ruslan Yermolyuk. Right now, for your attention.
He finally washed his clothes and made a sandwich for himself and his buddies, in silence. The lucky one just came out from zero.
There's a chance to change the person earlier. We need to change earlier because in this situation on our front there's constant tension. Constant mortar shelling, shooting, close combat. They're coming, just like before, 5 or 3 times a day.
Days, weeks, and even months, and their simple infantrymen have to live at zero with daily assaults and shelling. The hardest part is getting in and out.
The hardest part for us is the distances. Let's just say they're not short. And again, those drops, those drones. And we constantly have 300 casualties and even more than 200 when going in and out. When you're on the ground, you already have a handle on the situation.
Sleep, just ordinary sleep, at least a few hours a day. What is lacking at the front lines? A lot of drones and drops. The enemy has the advantage in numbers, so the fighters have to constantly be armed and go without sleep. In the crosshairs of death, these are the realities of this war.
When I returned to the positions, I slept at least 10 hours on duty in a day. This time when I was there, I managed to get the most. I got 4 hours, but the least was 0. Let's shoot.
The 40-ton Mishka flies through the darkness. The battleship is racing to the positions. An enemy assault is being prepared. We need to act proactively. The tankers are helping our infantry.
So today we were working. The enemy gathers in small groups in the bunkers, gets closer, and then attacks as a large group.
Every outing for the crew is a risk. A big target for enemy artillery and drones.
The adrenaline of the job. The adrenaline is working. Of course it's scary, especially with so many drones. For all the drones...
And there's also the noise from the tracks. It's practically impossible to approach the enemy positions unnoticed. Our tankers have to work in close proximity to the enemy positions, so every minute counts. After all, the occupiers have quite serious counter-battery systems, so you need to shoot quickly and accurately. Also change positions quickly, because return fire starts. High explosive fragmentation shells are flying into the darkness. There are hits, the spotter confirmed. The snipers on the armored vehicles are not professional soldiers, but former civilians.
In civilian life, of course, no, I had nothing to do with technology. I was involved in construction, building factories.
Drones are hunting for armored vehicles, especially for this ghost that constantly targets the occupiers.
Bunkers, equipment, different targets. We have some, mainly bunkers, where the drone operators are sitting.
It's becoming increasingly difficult for the armored vehicles to reach the positions. The enemy is actively hunting tanks from the sky and from the ground. Mines all the roads. However, an order is an order, especially when our infantry is under siege. Naranzi had a problem repeated several times.
There used to be a problem because they mined, ours mined, and it was unclear where the mines were. Nobody knows anything. The sapper teams went there, yes, and we went ourselves, checking for mines, checking where it was safe to pass. That even losing to them is never enough for the government.
This is the crew, 3 tankers and a dog. We got our buddy 2 years ago as a puppy, and since then he's been with the guys.
I don't just get along. I love all the equipment. He really loves all the equipment, loves to ride on it. I got a bit carried away, went out for a while. He got a bit carried away.
Buddy has become the crew's mascot. If the dog is calm before heading out, then the guys aren't nervous either, because they know everything will be all right.
Well, now let's analyze the operational situation on the Kupiansk and Lyman fronts of the Russian world. And here they continue to destroy, kill, and maim. The aggressor attacked our positions on the Kupiansk front 3 times near Petropavlivka, Zarezovi, and Nova Krylyakivka. The defense forces stopped all enemy attacks. On the Lyman-Yo front today, Russian troops attacked Ukrainian defenders in the areas of the settlements of Kopanki, Balki, Zhuravka and Amplivka, Zelenaya Dolina, Terny, and the Wells. Our troops repelled 9 enemy attacks. The areas of Nova Krylyakivka and Lyman were under airstrike. And once again, it has been a very tough week for Ukraine's Pearl by the Sea, Odessa. Once again, from January 27 to 28, Russia carried out yet another terrorist act against the peaceful residents of the city. In the morning, an airstrike began from the sea. As reported by rescuers, there was a hit in one courtyard in a residential area. There, 10 cars were burned. Windows were shattered in 3 9-story buildings. As a result of the shelling, 4 people were injured. The medics provided assistance to the 3 injured on the spot. A 90-year-old man had to be hospitalized. KTSN correspondent Elena Chernieva will tell and show more.
Residents of the damaged houses are rushing to cover the windows with plastic and wooden boards. It's humid and very windy in Odessa today, so the apartments cooled down instantly. People are warming up outside near tents with hot tea. There's a huge crater in the playground in the yard between the 4 high-rise buildings. There are no windows in the houses from the 1st to the 9th floor. The blast wave not only shattered the glass but also blew out the frames. Explosions were heard before dawn.
I read on my phone that there was an air raid alert. First there's a dull bang and then it crashes and starts to explode and burn. More cars started to explode. The balcony is shattered. I was sitting next to the couch and then I ran out into the hallway.
In the parking lot near the house, 10 cars are smashed and 4 have burned to the ground.
There was an explosion. I ran out to the selection, took a fire extinguisher with me and tried to put it out. Here's my car, a Golf 3, and the fire extinguisher lasted for 5 seconds. It's good that God took the metal instead of the lives of the citizens. With glass, not the lives of the citizens.
The utility workers are helping residents clean up the damaged frames. All the houses inside are filled with rubble and glass. 4 people sustained cuts. A 90-year-old man was hospitalized. Rescuers freed 2 women from their apartment where the doors had jammed.
The windowsill was ripped out. The windowsills and the window closing mechanism were ripped out. We'll do everything ourselves. I have a reflex that kicks in. I immediately go and open all the windows. I had everything open so it didn't get damaged much. And here's our car. It burned down.
According to preliminary estimates, 900 windows have been damaged in 10 houses in this area. And at the school, the city residents are promised compensation for the replacements. In addition, 5 summer houses, a grain storage facility, and a multi-story building on the coast were damaged.
There, fortunately, the damage is less severe. About 15 apartments, around 50 windows. We have deployed headquarters in both places, with utility companies working on the aftermath of the enemy attack.
In the damaged school, the students still sat at their desks today in the rooms that weren't affected.
Well, now it's time to move to the Novopavlovsk and Gulyaipol front lines. Let's be honest, these areas are also sacred targets for Putin and his pack. Accordingly, the situation here is tense to the limit. On the Novopavlovsk front, the invaders launched one attack on the positions of Ukrainian troops near Konstantinivka. The settlements of Razliv and Kamar were subjected to airstrikes. On the Gulyaipol front, the aggressor made 4 attempts to push our defenders back, who are positioned in the areas of Novopilia and Novosilka. Ternivka and Timirivka were affected by enemy airstrikes. And now for some very bad news for Putin and his entourage. The thing is, France plans to transfer fighter jets to Ukraine, Mirage 2005, until the end. The first quarter of the year 2025. It sounds somewhat symbolic. The Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot reports directly, "Let me remind you, the fighter jets of the Mirage 2005 version, which Ukraine will be receiving, they can be easily adapted for launching Scalp and Storm Shadow missiles, as well as air bombs. The 2005 version also provides an additional advantage for the Ukrainian Air Force thanks to advanced air-to-air missiles." What will all this mean in practice for the Russian war criminals? Will the French Mirages become a thorn in the side for Putin and his military leaders? This is exactly what the next piece by Vitaly Afanasenko is about. They are highly maneuverable, reliable, and multifunctional.
French Mirages have a significant record of participation in combat operations. In particular, they fought in the Gulf War and during the war in Afghanistan, in Syria, Bosnia, and Kosovo. And in the near future, Ukrainian flags will appear on the wings of the Mirages. And although some call these Mirages old aircraft, The 2005 modification that France promised us has modern avionics installed, allowing it to effectively intercept cruise missiles and kamikaze drones. Modern weapons, including the Scalp missiles, which strike fear into the Russian army, as such missiles can penetrate even a deep bunker.
We want to increase the number of platforms that could carry Storm Shadow Scalp missiles because we see the effectiveness of using these missiles against Russian bunkers where Russian officers are dying after these blows.
High-precision long-range scalps and storm sheds could definitely turn the tide of the war in our favor, provided that the armed forces of Ukraine have them in sufficient quantities. To achieve this, we need to wear down the occupier and strike at the enemy's logistics and supply depots. Even beyond our borders, experts are convinced. Of course, more Mirages.
Mirages are for Scalpel missiles and hammer bombs. We need to get 50 monthly guided bombs, respectively. It's very important for us to receive them, even in small quantities, about 50 per month. What is there to talk about when the Russians are using thousands of aerial bombs?
The main question right now is, will the Mirages be able to push them back further? Russian Su-24s can still get close and drop bombs on our cities and villages. For comparison, French planes can see up to 130 kilometers. And the missiles that will obviously be handed over to us will only reach a distance of up to 80 kilometers. While the Su-35, it has a radar range of up to 300 kilometers, and under its wings it carries missiles with a strike range twice that of the Mirages. All this can be easily replayed and seen many times further than the enemy. As soon as we get the 2 flying radars promised to us by the Swedes, all chains are alive on Earth. All chains are alive on Earth.
All of this works in conjunction with aviation, tactical aviation like the F-16s, MiG-29s, our Su-24s and Mirages. And the theater of operations is actively being adjusted thanks to long-range radar detection aircraft. Additionally, we need to understand what it takes for all of this to work together. We need to get Link 16, which will allow us to exchange information and provide targets and instructions.
Without a sufficient number of frontline air defense systems and far-sighted radar reconnaissance fly into the operating radius. The same goes for the Su-24s or enemy air defense. Mirages, just like F-16s, simply won't be enough. As soon as the long-range eyes appear, experts assure that the Mirages, along with the F-16s, will definitely drive away enemy aviation. Because besides the Scalps and Storm Shadows, the Mirage 2000 can carry guided missiles with an active radar homing head that works on the fire-and-forget principle. They are also armed with anti-ship missiles, which in the latest versions have gained the ability to hit ground targets. If such weapons are provided to our aircraft, it will definitely unlock the full potential of the French multi-role fighter and allow Ukraine to win in the skies.
Yes, Yum.
The addition of Mirages should happen in large numbers and with the appropriate armament, so it doesn't end up like with the F-16s. The options for air defense, armament, and air-to-ground capabilities are most relevant for us in the fight against guided aerial bombs.
That's all for today, but very soon on the Front News program, new, unique materials from our journalists from the hottest spots of the war, gathered so that you know the truth. This was Vladimir Timoshenko. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.